Sociopath, what's your superpower? What is your superpower? I mean, everybody's got one, right? That was mine. I survived being married to a sociopath. So I talked a lot about that last month. We laid the foundation for taking back your powers and for reclaiming it and for remembering that you are worthy of your power. So I'm going to kind of go back over that a little bit. There are some worksheets over there. There's also index cards. So at the end I want to kind of do something with the index cards, so we'll get there. I'll pass them out if you haven't gotten them. So for those of you that weren't here last month, my situation that led to me reclaiming my power, it's not unique. I was married for over 20 years to a cheating, controlling, narcissistic sociopath. He was not a nice person. Looking back now, I know I didn't love him. I had no love for him. It had passed. I was just terrified of change. I thought I had to stay married to him till my kids graduated high school. I didn't want a divorced household. He threatened to take the kids every time I would leave. It was easier to give him my power. So for years I did that. I just handed it to him. He controlled what I ate, what I wore, how my hair looked, where we lived. But then a miracle happened. He was arrested and I was free. So for the next few years, I struggled, I tripped, and I fell over myself trying to reclaim my power, trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted. I had to completely rediscover what my beliefs, my needs, my values were, what I wanted, what I didn't want, and who I was. I had no clue because for so long I had let him define me. I had to figure out how to redefine myself. So the most important lesson I learned during that time was I began to believe in me. And I began to take back my power. So the other thing we talked about last month was what personal empowerment means. So let me kind of recap. To me, it meant I had to take back control of my life. I had to take back over the control of my actions, my reactions, my inactions, whatever they were. I had to own them. I had to take them back. I had to learn how to be proud of what I did. I had to learn that I was worthy of being happy. I was worthy of love. I found courage when I thought I didn't have any, and that was huge for me. The other thing I learned is that when you take back your power, there's an entire new world at your feet. Like Corinne was talking about, the doors open, people come into your lives, they just change, and suddenly you're on a completely different path. It's a whole new journey, and it's amazing. And yeah, there's going to be bumps, but it's so much better than where you were. You're thrilled with it. So the first step that we talked about last month was fostering true self-awareness. Now, self-awareness is not just paying attention. It means you have to dig deep and examine yourself. You need to examine your needs, your beliefs, your values. You need to figure out what those are for you. What you want, what do you value? Then you have to dig deeper. You have to ask yourself further questions so that you have a core understanding of yourself. You need to be your own best friend. Then you need to figure out what your strengths are and what your challenges are. Because again, once you know those, you can figure out how you can cultivate and nurture them, nurture your strengths to make you the person that you want to be. So we made the lists last month. That's what I call them, the lists. So you were able to kind of list what your strengths were, list what your needs were, list what your values were. That's what I call the core. So then after you have that figured out, you need to take the next step. You need to ask yourself the tough questions. Where in your life do you feel unfulfilled? What do you want to change? Do you want to move in your current job? Do you need to save money? Do you want a new job? Do you want an old job? Whatever the case is, you need to ask yourself those questions. and figure out with your strengths what you can do and how you can use those strengths to get to where you want to be. And where can you take back your power? Who have you been giving it to? Take it back. It's yours. Don't hand it out. It's not candy. Keep it. So that's the self-awareness that we talked about. We spent a lot of time talking about changing your inner dialogue. You know, that voice that's in the back of your head that's just griping on you all the time. So we talked about reprogramming that inner critique. Change the way it talks to you. Sell yourself and your attributes to yourself. Nobody is going to talk you up as well as you can. You know what your strengths are now. You just did that whole list. You know what you're good at. Find it. Sell yourself to yourself. Do not let your inner voice take that power from you. Keep it, even from yourself. The next part of the reprogramming was surrounding yourself with like-minded people. So don't listen to those negative, sabotaging people that you have that feed that negative voice. You want to be surrounded by people who encourage you, who like you, and who want to be around you. So I shared with you last month about how that was a very tough self-awareness exercise for me, because I discovered that I had surrounded myself with people who fed my feeling of inadequacy. That's where I was comfortable. So I had to do some serious house cleaning of the people that I had surrounded myself with. Some of the people that I thought were my best friends were not. They were actually more interested in keeping me unhealthy than helping me change. I had to relearn that I was worthy of having people who cared about me in my life. And I want to encourage you guys to remember that you are worthy as well. Love. I encourage you to love yourself, to love everything around you, and to find love in unique places. That's one lesson that hit home for me when I was doing all of these lists and I was trying to figure things out, is I had love let's think about it. So you think love, you automatically go to like the Harlequin romances and, oh, I need to have this boyfriend, or I need to have this girlfriend, or I need to, that's what people, when you say love, that's what you think of, right? Valentine's Day. That's not what I discovered. I discovered love was all around me. My dogs. I was crazy about the fact that I had these dogs. They loved me no matter what. They were always happy to see me. They never spent my money. They were always there to cuddle, and they stuck to their side of the bed. It was perfect. So I discovered love in all different places. I found friends who I might have discounted them as friends before, but suddenly they appeared in my life when I needed them most to encourage me onto the next step. So look for love. You're going to find it in different places. I found new passions that I didn't know I had. I found gifts. I began to love myself. We often, like I said, think of love as just the significant other part, but that's not. It's so much bigger than that. And once you attract it into your life, it, as my son says, it spawns. It just continues to grow. And that's what you want to encourage. So now you've done all this work. You've made your list. You figured out what your strengths are. You figured out what your challenges are. So now we're going to kind of talk about the power tools. What do you have already inside you to help you stay on track, to help you figure out where you want to go and take that next step? We talked about some of them last month, but they are strong enough that we're going to revisit them. Visualization was the first one. So I used visualization a lot in my journey. I had pictures all over the house. I had sayings all over the house. I listened to certain music. I signed up for the universe emails and Daily Om and all of those, and my inbox would just be full of that type of thing. Those are the kind of things you can use. You can create visualization boards. You can use books. I found a book the other day at Barnes & Noble that was a 200-page book of nothing but positive affirmations. Use those kind of things. Mm-hmm.
What were your examples again?
Magazine cutouts.
What? Okay,
magazines, right? Because I had one that said there was an article from Jillian Michael, from The Biggest Loser, and she said selfish is not a dirty word. That was important to me.
About the internet, something on the internet?
There were internets. There was the universe emails, the TUT emails.
It's called what?
TUT, T-U-T.
T what?
T-U-T.
T-U-T.
And then there were the daily ohms.
DailyOhms.com, Jeff. You just go in and it's free, and you get a really good affirmation every day.
So you also look up T-U-T?
Yes.
TUT.
Mm-hmm.
That's
the spelling of the ohms, the daily ohms.
Daily ohms, yeah. There's another one. OMS, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one's fun. It's
they're good little lessons.
they do.
also
They're
have
lessons. That's a
classes.
good word for it.
That
Yeah.
you can, give $25, and the class is online, and you don't get graded or anything, but it enriches you spiritually.
Music was the other thing. I got really into different kinds of music, and because suddenly music was speaking to me differently than it did before. So that's another one that I didn't really talk about last month, that I would encourage you to have fun with, because music can be extremely powerful in sending messages. So, backgrounds on your computer. Think about that too. At work, I would change my screensaver to have like how you can do the marquee, so it would be one line or something. So you change that. I'd have a certain picture on the back that meant something to me. Just anything to remind yourself that you are worthy of the life that you want.
Post-it notes, if you don't, something like that.
I would write on my bathroom mirror.
And put them on your computer if you work at a computer all day away from your home, and it'll be in code. Nobody will know what that is but it'll remind you of the affirmation.
Exactly.
What I do is for my passwords, I use affirmations and I just drop the vowels to make them go together.
That's a great
Now I know
idea.
how to get into her email. Thank you. Yeah, I know. That's great.
Yes, that's a good one. I forgot about that one. When you're going through this journey and you are changing who you are, not everybody's going to be thrilled with those changes. They're not going to understand it at all. My parents thought I had they thought I was becoming a Fruit Loop. They didn't understand it at all. They thought I had, some kind of mental problem. I was like, you're having what they say, it was like happy thought problem. Becoming Pollyanna was one of my nicknames. People aren't going to understand it, but that's okay. They don't, as long as you understand it, as long as you know what you're doing, maybe you need to look at those people that don't understand it and figure out if they still need to be in your life. And then look at some of the people that are coming in, share that with some of the people, and you'd be amazed at what conversations and what you'll learn from each other, and how these people just present themselves in your life when you need them most. So my favorite example of people not understanding it is my ex-husband used to just randomly show up at my house before I moved. So he'd just show up. And we were having an argument as usual about something, and he's like, God, you have changed. I was like, oh, thank you. Do the happy dance. This is awesome. Thank you. That's the that's when you realize that you're on the right path. That's when you realize, okay, I am changing. I am creating who I want to be. Because the old me would have just sat there and gone, yeah, okay, whatever. The new me was fighting back, was standing up for myself. So that to me was huge. It was showing me that everything was falling in line the way it was supposed to be, the way I was manifesting it, the way I wanted it to be. Journaling for me was part of my visualization process. And I have to admit that I have gotten out of the habit and I miss it. Journaling, I would journal every night. I would write my mantras in it. I would write positive things about me. I would always put in there, you were strong, beautiful, intelligent, whatever it was. Whatever I needed to hear that day, whether I believed it or not, I wrote it down. I used my journal as, it was not structured. It's whatever came in my head. So if you look back over it, I probably wouldn't even figure out what the heck I was writing in there. But it was all things that I needed to express. I used it to help me figure out how to communicate with people. So if I had a situation, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that I wasn't quite sure why it bothered me, but it did, I would journal about it. I would just free write. And a lot of my emotions would come out in that, and I would be able to figure out, oh, that's why. So we talked, some people go back and reread their journals. I don't. I wrote it, they're all in a box somewhere in the garage. I wrote it, I sealed it up, I'm done with it. Some people like to revisit it and see where they were and to learn from it. To me, that's not my process, but that might be yours. It's not mine though. So keep in mind when you're journaling, you'll know what feels right. But I highly, highly recommend, if you don't now, using a journal. Personally, I like paper, obviously. So I like the cool books and the cool pens. A friend of mine journals on the computer. To me, I can't do. I can type, but that's for something else. I like the pens and the paper and the writing and that type of thing. Use what works for you guys. You will know. But I highly, highly recommend using journaling as part of your visualization. It helps you figure out your communication style. And communication is another powerful, powerful tool that you have in your toolbox. There's many different aspects to it. So all of these tools that we're talking about, you have within yourself already. You just need to remember to use them. I mean, how many of us have toolboxes in the house? I do. I opened mine the other day looking for a screwdriver. And it was kind of like, I didn't know I had this. Oh, I totally forgot I had this. Oh, what is this for? Is this a stud thing? Where'd this come from? It's the same way that you have in your personal toolbox. There's so much in there, you forget you have it. So I'm just going to touch on a few things. But I know once you start rummaging through your own toolbox, you're going to find some pretty cool stuff in there. So communication. Communication is key. It is paramount. It is essential. It is number one on my list. Because there's two types of communication. There's communication with yourself, and there's communication with others. We talked about your inner voice and that nagging thing that's in the back of your head. That's communication too. Communicate positively with yourself. Express gratitude. I may wake up one morning and I'm like, I exercised way too hard yesterday or something because my legs are killing me. But guess what? I can stand up. I can walk. Even though I may be stiff, I am grateful for the fact that I can do that. And I know you understand that feeling too. So be grateful. Even if you don't think you have anything, you do. Dig deep. Figure it out. It could be that I'm just grateful none of my eyelashes fell out. I don't know. And find something if you look hard enough. Change the way your inner voice communicates with you. The hardest lesson that I had to learn was to forgive myself. I had to give myself permission to move on. And I thought I was doing it. I thought I was on the path for positivity. I was happy, I was making changes, I was doing my affirmations, I was journaling. But as I started to understand my emotions more, I would go through, I don't know, weeks, days, whatever, where I would be so caught up in regret that I didn't know how to move forward. I was a very, very young mother. So I always said, because I gave up my college and my life for my kids, that I didn't believe in regrets, because this was the path that I was supposed to be on. So for my whole life, I was like, I don't believe in regrets. I think they're a waste of time. Suddenly, I was full of regrets. Why did I wait so long? Why did I put up with him? Why did I let him do that to me? He is toxic and a jerk, but I let him treat me that way. I wasted years of my life giving him my power. I was angry, livid, and I didn't know how to get past it because the anger and the regret would get so caught up in there that even if I was grateful, I would come home and my dogs would be happy to see me and I'm like, okay, I've got a good job, okay, I can do this. I still was not forgiving myself. I still was not moving on because my inner voice was still telling me that you blew it. So one time, I began to complain about it. One time I was sitting on the patio with Corinne and Lori, and I said, I'm too old for this. How can I start fresh? I am so old. I wasn't 40 yet. So Corinne and Lori kind of looked at me like they thought I had lost my mind. They're like, are you kidding? And they said all the right things, and I was like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. And I just kind of gave them some lip service. So my divorce had been final for, 6-8 months. I paid my divorce attorney. There was no reason this woman should be calling me. Had that conversation with Corinne and Lori, let's say on the weekend. Within that week, my divorce attorney called me on the phone. What do you want? I paid you, right? So I always felt that she was an angel that was provided to me. Not only was she my attorney, but she said some things. She made sure I was okay. I'll never forget there was one time during the trial, because we had to go to trial, because he's a jerk, so we had to go to trial, and she looked at me and she goes, don't you feel sorry for him? Don't you buy into this? So she said everything that I needed to hear right at the right time. So she was an angel to me. So here this woman is, her name's Zelina, calling me out of the blue. What do you want? What? She goes, I want to make sure that you remember something. Okay. You are a vibrant, beautiful, intelligent, young woman. And I'm just checking in with you to make sure that you're moving forward. She is the one who got through to me. Because if somebody random is saying that to me, and I already considered her an angel, then I really needed to hear what she was saying. That's when I realized that I was stuck. I was not going to move forward until I forgave myself. They were right. I wasn't 40 yet. I had just turned 40 maybe by that time, but life begins at 40. It wasn't about the number. It was about the fact that I needed to give myself permission to move forward. Yeah, it happened. Yeah, I did that. I lived that life. But that's not me anymore. It's part of who I am, but it doesn't define me. I had to forgive myself my inactions. That was actually harder than forgiving what I did. It's what I didn't do. It's what I didn't say. So I had to make sure that I didn't make those same mistakes going forward. So I always speak my truth now. Try to be as delicate as possible sometimes, but heavenly sandpaper is there sometimes, yes. Do not let your past mistakes, your past life, your yesterday, define who you are today. Do not give your past your power. It's yours. It's yours in the present.
Also along that same path as you were speaking, maybe you're going to bring this up, but don't give it power. Also, don't give it power saying, well, I've never done it that way before.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't want to do that. Or why do you think I should go do this now? I'm too old to do that. Don't ask me to move. You know,
Right.
we get to the age where one of these days my kids are gonna say, Corinne, I think it's time you need a littler house, not so much room. And we use our past to defeat us. So that's a way for me to look at it. Maybe not the young people so much, but even your boss, if your boss is to say, hey, we're moving you out of this department into a new one. Oh, well, I don't want to do that. I do great at this one.
Right.
So again, it strangles you. However today is the only day we have, this moment, right now. So I think you're onto something there. It does, and there's people in here I know that have taken jobs. And what made them say, okay, I'll do this,
Right.
you know?
You have to give yourself permission to redefine yourself. That's power in itself.
Right.
And you may not like change, but change is going to happen. So it's all in how you go about working through the change, right? Experiencing the change. Because no matter what, it's going to happen. It's just, I always wanted to be a graceful person. And I realized that grace was, my husband's laughing because I am the most, and I can trip over imaginary speed bumps all the time. But I always wanted to be a graceful person. And that was part of what I did when I was redefining myself, graceful. Well, I realized I am never, ever going to be a decent dancer or graceful in that way. But I can be graceful in the way I communicate.
In spirit, yeah.
I can be graceful in the way I am. So I realized that these adjectives take on many different meanings. It's all in how you can define yourself with them. So I had to take action. I had to set the intention to forgive myself and move forward. Like I said, I would do all these journalings. I would say certain things every morning, but I had so many of them now that I had to keep them so that I could remember what the heck I was talking about. So I used all F's. So to me, it was like an inside joke. Okay, here's your F words. Forgiveness, fun, and forward. Because fun, I wanted to have fun in my life. Right. I wanted to have passion. I wanted to experience things. So I crammed all of that into one word. But again, and then for a while I had B words. I mean, I had to keep them so that I could remember them.
Yeah, forgive, fun, and what?
Forgive, forward.
Forward.
Moving forward, in other words.
I did eventually learn how to forgive myself. I did. I can honestly stand up here now and say I no longer have any twinges of that. I am not necessarily proud of some of the things I did in my past life or didn't do, but I no longer have shame for them because they're past.
When was the point where you let go and forgave yourself? What was the catalyst or the turning point?
I don't know if there was one thing that particularly happened.
A multitude of things.
It was a multitude of things, and it was just kind of a moment when I realized that I could see my end goal. I could see, I was on this path to get to where I wanted to be this type of person. But I also knew that I was not going to get there. There was like a huge cavern in front of me. And I knew that unless I let that go, I was never going to get over it.
Okay.
I wish I could tell you it was this when it happened, but it wasn't.
You were at a Starbucks and
Right, and I got a lightning bolt to the
Yeah.
head. That wasn't it. It was just kind of a,
It's a process.
it is,
for
and
it.
I would always revisit, I said make the list. I would constantly revisit those. Not necessarily go back in my journal and see what I had written, but in my head, because I knew what I had put down. So I was constantly revisiting that. Am I being honest with myself? And honesty is huge for me. So I had to realize that I was not being honest with myself. and loving myself, and so I had to fix that. What I also realized though was that I had to walk the talk, is what I called it. Some people say put your money where your mouth is. I had to walk the talk. And I couldn't do that until, I joke that everybody has baggage, right? Hopefully mine's Louis Vuitton, but everybody has baggage. It's what you do with that baggage. And there comes a point in time where you have to set it down and you have to just leave it. You have to release it into the universe and say, it was bad for me, but it might not be for somebody else. It's gonna go, it's gonna, whatever. But you have to let it go. So now you've done the communication with yourself. You have forgiven yourself, whatever your case. Well, not everybody has something to forgive. It might be something completely different for you. But whatever it is, you're dealing with that. Now, my question is, how do you deal with others? I said there were two parts to communication. Communication with others is just as important as it is to communication with yourself. I had my emotions wound so tight because I hadn't felt them in so long. Well, I hadn't expressed them in so long. So I was wound really tight. So I needed to learn how to communicate what I was feeling with others. And not everybody was going to be as forgiving as Corinne is, because I would practice on her. There would be days I'd talk to her and I'd be like verbally vomiting all over the place and just bleh, and she'd be like, I have no idea what you just said, but do you feel better? Yes, then fine. So not everybody is as forgiving in her. I was working. I had to deal with other people in a work environment, right? So you have to learn how to communicate clearly with others. To me, emotions were a waste of time. They were not productive and they did not belong in the workplace. That's great on paper. In reality, we all know that's a crock because everybody has feelings, right? And you're at your work for how many hours a day, and that's where people are gonna say things, people are gonna act, whatever the case is, you're gonna have emotions, you're gonna have reactions to situations. So I had to learn how to communicate clearly to express that if something they said upset me. So I had to actually take a step back and figure out what my emotions were. So the situation really upset me. Why? Well, I don't know, I'm just really upset. That's not good enough. Articulate why. So that's where the journaling came in with me. So I had to not react, which was easy for me because I was used to not reacting, right? But I had to not immediately react when a situation would occur. So I'm going to give you some of the hints that I learned the hard way on kind of how to, so they don't think you're not reacting, but so that you can start this communication, this conversation with somebody else. So you're at work, you're out with friends, whatever the case is, and something is said by them, and it sits with you wrong. I mean, we've all been in that situation, right? And you can't really tell exactly what it is, but you're like, that just doesn't feel right. So you need to figure out, like I said, you need to back up and you need to figure out articulate for yourself what it is you're feeling. And then you need to learn how to express it. So as you set the intention that you're going to communicate clearer with others, the universe has a wicked sense of humor and tends to put those opportunities right in front of you, often before you're ready to deal with them. So what I would do is I set the intention one year that I wanted to get healthy. And to me, healthy was learning how to communicate. So when you're communicating with others, just keep in the back of your head that you want to have a healthy conversation with these people. So my kids and my ex would give these lovely, they'd say we were all talking about a Christmas that happened. And you're like, where did that, were we all in the same house? Because that's not how it really happened. That's an okay thing to say. Is to say, you know what, that's really not how I remember it. Is that how you remember it? Because the way I remember it is such and such. Or with There were some places, there were some people that I had to be a little aggressive with, and I would just say, that's not what happened. Nope, that's not what the way it was. That's an okay statement too. But if it's at work, or if you're trying to be friendly with them, then again, think of a healthy way to do it. Are you sure? Because my notes say this. I got to the point where I was writing everything down. Every meeting I was in, I was writing notes down. Because I needed to go back and revisit them later to make sure that I was dealing with the true situation at hand. The other thing is to ask for clarification. So Mason, you and I are having a conversation, and I say, so what I hear you saying is this. That's also okay. Repeat back to them what they said to make sure that you understand what they're saying. Because a lot of times they'll say, well, no, that's not it. I said it was purple, not pink. So you might have heard it wrong, or you translated it differently than the way they meant it. That also makes them engage in the conversation. It makes them have to actively listen. Actively listening is the best thing that you can do to learn how to communicate. It's tough work because you can't just sit there and have a conversation and not think about what you're saying. You have to actively listen to what the other person is saying. Repeat some of it back to them. Make sure you understand it. And then sometimes it's even okay to say, you know what, I need to think on that. Can I get back to you? So here's an example. Let's say you volunteer for everything at work. Everything that comes down the pike, or you're at your kids' school and you just automatically say, yeah, I'll do the book fair. Yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, I'll run this meeting. Yeah, I'll do this. And you don't even check your calendar. You don't even know if you really want to do it. Going forward, instead say, you know what? I need to check my calendar. Can I get back to you on that? I'll get back to you tomorrow. I need to think about it overnight. Now, some people go, what? Especially if you're the type of person that's just always automatically agreed without thinking. They'll get used to it. They'll get used to the fact that you want time to think about it. Because the most important thing you have to think about is, are you repeating one of your bad habits? Is this a situation, let's say it's a book fair. Is this situation, running this book fair at the school, something that you've always done but you really don't want to? So why are you still doing it? Are you still surrounding yourself with people that you should not be surrounding yourself with because they're not encouraging you? What is your true motivation for doing this? You should have the time to figure that out. And I know this world, a lot of peace, it moves it, really quick. Take back that power and say, no, I'll get back to you tomorrow. I'll call you in the morning. And then do it. You both have to stick to that deadline. But it buys you some time to look at the situation objectively and figure out if it's what's best for you.
Wendy, I think another good thing to do too, if someone says something to you that really, all of a sudden, it's just, you want to flare, because you've had people do that, or you feel yourself going to be very defensive, just say to them, I think it would be a good idea if we discuss this at a different time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a little taken back by this, and I just need to understand a little bit better. Sometimes it's with people that we love. We will say, I know, I got called on it a couple weeks ago. I said something to someone, and it was the way I said it. It was like, well, da-da-da-da. It's like, well, no, that's not the way it is. And I said, well, then how is it? Well, why don't you ask me?
Right.
See, sometimes the student is the teacher. Why don't you ask me what was said or what was done? And I felt like I was in kindergarten. Because I thought, oh my gosh, I allowed my emotions, to get ahead of, and we all do it.
Oh, absolutely.
And then once that was said to me, I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, why don't you tell me, But we all do it. We think that we're really communicating, and all of a sudden we're hurting someone's feelings. And no one wants to do that.
No, and it's not, a lot of times it's not intentional. I've gotten to the point, too, where there's a lot of times when we'll be talking about something and I'll be like, I don't want to talk about that right now.
Right.
And that's okay. I'm not saying we're not going to revisit it later. I don't want to talk about that right now. It might just be because I don't trust that I'm not going to snap at them and hurt their feelings or whatever the case is. But that's okay to say too. Because the key is, again, you want to keep it healthy. So you want to keep the aggression out of it. Because think about it, when you're talking to somebody, like Corinne was explaining that, and you put somebody on the defensive, remember what it feels like when you get on the defensive? Because you're not listening to anything they have to say anymore. There's no active listening, there's no active communication. All you can think about is, well, I gotta prove my point. Well, I'm gonna knock you down because now I've got to defend myself. That's no longer a conversation. So it's okay to put those, they're not really blockers, but they're stallers, to say, I need to think about this, or I don't want to talk about this right now.
Clarifying it too.
That's huge.
It's letting the other person know, hey, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't have brought this up right now.
Mhm.
By you just saying, I don't care to talk about it right now.
Exactly.
And maybe and then they think, oh, okay, I get it, okay, that's fine.
I think that most people think of communication and the auditory type of communication as listening and talking, and they forget about the most important one, which is the feedback, message received. And I think that if we're not thinking before we speak in this, if we're not present in that, then they can be so automatic that we're not feeding back the right information. But I think the reason people don't ask questions in that about, what did you mean, is because they don't want to appear stupid. And our perceptions and our projections, everything we hear is based on how we think, not how the other person thinks. And that's what you've got to get through.
Exactly.
I sort of started communication understanding that the likelihood of misunderstanding is so high, it's amazing that we even attempt it. It's amazing that we even attempt it. But if we keep, asking, until we understand it. Some people sort of like, well, you're challenging me on this. It's like, no, I'm really just trying to understand.
Right.
And then, like you said, if someone, gets rattled in this type of thing, the best thing to do is, peacefully stop the communication, postpone it, follow up with it later.
Right, and a lot of times it is, if they just don't understand what you're doing. So a lot of times you just have to explain, okay, I'm just trying to understand. I'm not questioning you. I don't get it.
I think we assume that people think like we do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I hope, it's a media. But communication is power, is huge. Yes?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
If you're dealing with someone that doesn't want to be clear.
Did you meet my ex-husband?
That's good. Really, there's one person I'm thinking of in particular, like to keep it very unclear, and also didn't like, took offense when I was assertive.
Oh, absolutely.
I just don't think it was a healthy relationship anyways.
That was what else I was going to say. The other thing is, too, that I learned is you cannot be rational with an irrational person. So there are some people that you're just not going to be able to communicate with. And you're just going to have to step back and say, I'm not getting through to you, so I'm not going to try to get that point. Because then I think you have to look at what point are you trying to get across.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that they really need to know, or is it something that you're trying to prove? So if it doesn't matter either way, if they're not going to do anything with this kernel that you just gave them, then why?
Yeah.
If that's healthy for you to know to walk away from. But again, I have several people in my life that I had to look and just say they're irrational. They don't think like we do, which is like a normal human being. So I can't get through to them. So, yes.
I'm in a Thursday night class every single night, every single week. It talks about the type of thing you can talk about. Anyway, I brought up the topic of my father. He cares deeply about me and the other people in the family. He's a very, 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 very harsh person. And one time, about 15 years ago, he said to my sister, well, now you know how I was brought up. In other words, he was kind of admitting he's too hard on people, but the care is so deep. He's a very community-minded person, cares deeply about me and the others. What's your comment on how to reduce stress when you're dealing with someone like that? Someone who cares about you, but they're harsh, very harsh.
I think what you have to remember is that you can't control them. You can only control you. Mhm.
I think when you're dealing with someone that you know is really harsh, that you have to be careful what you tell them.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
it's sort of like you have to kind of choose.
Well, but see, I've thought all my life about how, I say, this is what I really, really believe. That won't involve me, because I've done this for decades. I say, this is what I really, really believe, you know, right?
But you said he's harsh, but he has love, right?
Well,
You said he has great love.
oh, yeah.
His delivery is harsh. So I think that's what else you have to remember too, is look past the delivery and hear the words and understand that it is said in love, because you can't change his delivery. He's been doing it forever, right? That's part of his personality. But you can change the way that you accept it and the way that you hear it. Because again, if you just get defensive with him, nothing's going to happen. It's kind of like communicating with my dad. For years, all we did was yell at each other. We thought that was normal.
Well, and I think also Jeff needs to just don't be hurt by it. See, that Jeff is holding all this stress inside from the feelings. He feels hurt. But knowledge is power, Jeff. So you said that he's always been this way. It's the way he was raised. It's always the way he is to everybody. And you also said he loves you. So don't be hurt by how he says it. Don't be hurt by the delivery anymore. You have to make a choice. You can make a choice. We make choices about being hurt. We really do. We choose to be hurt or we choose not to. So next time you go in to see him, just say to yourself, I'm choosing not to be hurt. I know no matter what my dad says, he loves me, period. And when he's talking to you, just see him as a big ball of love. You know, you have to visualize that love. And we can choose not to be hurt.
And we can learn from it, because we
Yeah.
can then learn to not communicate that way with anybody else.
With other people.
Mhm.
Another thing going into that is before you even go over to see him, visualize what you would like to see from him. Have a relationship in your head before you have a relationship with him. So you're much more prepared to communicate with him. It's kind of like laying the path, or, the
Mhm.
foundation.
Putting it out there.
Yeah, putting it out there. And then when you go, you'll notice it'll go a lot more smoothly.
One way to sum it up might be, it's not about the words, it's about the intention.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
That's good, yeah. And it flows perfectly, thank you. And to my next point is ego. We all have one, right? We just have to make sure that we don't let our ego in the way of communication, the true communication, the words behind it. Words are powerful. And you need to remember that too, is think of a fence. When you hammer the nail in the fence, even if you pull the nail out, there's still a hole. Words are like that. Just because you said it and then say, oh, never mind, I didn't mean that. It doesn't matter. The hole is still there. So choose your words carefully, without ego, and without aggression. Finally, actions. So now we're really going to get into the meat of walking the talk. So actions are how you act, how you react, how you interact, and how you respond. Those, to me, are what I'm talking about with actions. So you have your lists, right? We've made our list. We have our core. You know what you want to change, because then you made the list of questions. So what actions are you going to take to get healthy, to be that person that you want to be? So now we start with goals. We make another list, yay, of your goals that you want. But before we even do that, you have to set the intention to take back your power, to be healthy, to be this person that you want to be. Whatever it is, you need to set that intention. So that is your very first step. And you need to reaffirm that intention every single day, sometimes a couple times a day. I'm going to take back my power. I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to be healthy. Whatever it is. They would be another mantra I would say over in my head. And I admit that there were some times I would be saying them over in my head over and over while somebody was talking to me, and I would miss part of the conversation. So make sure you are being conscious when you are doing that. You know, like when somebody's talking to you and you're just saying, and you're like, you're going to be stronger. You're not going to buy into this. You're going to be stronger. What did you say? What? Yes. So be conscious about which one. So now that you've set your intentions, you take your actions. We're going to do this in a healthy, constructive way. You're going to set your goals. So once you've learned about yourself, your communication skills, you have your list of your strengths, which are going to help you reach those goals. So then you look at the list of challenges, and that's pretty much where you can come up with some of the things that you want to change. That's where you can start with your goal list. I suggest setting small goals. We all have an end goal. I had this end goal that I wanted, but I had to set extremely, well, a lot of them, smaller goals to get up to that end goal. There were times when my goal was to get through the hour. Honest, that was it. It's 7 now, I just gotta get till 8. I just gotta get, then it was I just gotta get till bedtime. I just gotta get up in the morning. So if you need to start simple, start with those. And then you expand and you grow and you figure out what else you want to do. But use them, set them based off your values, your beliefs, and your needs. Nobody else's. Yours. Because these are your goals. This is your life. So you want to lose weight? Walk for 10 minutes at lunch. You want to meditate more? Say, listen to a chakra meditation CD and say you're going to do the root chakra every day this week, or at least 3 times this week. Set small goals. Don't get caught up in the big grandiose presentation. You want to reward yourself for being this new person. So set the goals so you can attain
Because
them.
if you don't, you'll give up. You really will. If you don't,
Oh, absolutely.
If you don't set goal A, B, C, D, E, and just start at A and go to Z, you're not going to do that overnight.
Right,
You
and
know,
you have
if
to,
that goal is that huge, I'm going to have a home, I'm going to have a family, I'm going to have a marriage, I'm going to have a career. That, if you're a young person, then you have to set, okay, now wait a minute, first I got to get through school. Set your smaller goals like Wendy is saying. Now for me, when you get to be my age, your goal is tomorrow is going to be a really good day. And I don't have any future goals. When you get to be older, I think, when you know where your niche is, your goal every day is to meet the next day. Really. And you can't imagine that's what it is, but that's really what it is.
one of mine is to be a better person than I was yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I
my
mean, it
goal
doesn't
every
have to
day.
be something big. It's wow, tomorrow I get another opportunity to do this. Life. So everyone, there's nobody that is too young to make goals. We make our kids make goals all the time.
Absolutely. So but they're all based on what you have discovered in your previous lists, what your beliefs are, what your needs are, what your values are. One of my values was education. So I worked full time. I had 3 teenagers and a worthless ex-husband at home, and I went to school at night. I would get up at 3 o'clock every morning to study because I had to be at work by 6. That was my goal. So the big goal was I wanted my degree. The little goal was, okay, I gotta get enough sleep so I can get up at 3 so I can get this homework so I can do this. So you have to break it back down. But think about big picture, yes. Then figure out how you can make it work for you. One of the things that I really want to stress with your goals is self-care. You need to take care of yourself because you are no good to anybody else unless you take care of yourself. It feels, at least for me, it felt very selfish. Very, very selfish to put myself first. But I realized that if I don't go to that yoga class, nobody wants to be around me. So it is really essential. Even if I could only run for 10 minutes, I was an avid runner. Even if I could only run for 10 minutes around the block once, as long as I did something like that and I took care of me, then I was available for everybody else. You have to take care of yourself. It is a goal that I still have to do it. I'm horrible at it. I realized I was working at Quicken Loans. I was pulling at least 70-hour weeks. I was newly married. I all of a sudden I had 2 more kids at home, 2 step-kids, right? I had family life again. It's not just me and the dogs anymore. Oh my God. They all came first. I got sick. Really sick. I was not putting myself first. And then all of a sudden I was no good to anybody else. You have to keep renewing that one. And it's not selfish. It's self-care. There's a difference. So the goals that you write down are the actions that put you on the path to facilitate the changes that you want. Okay? So they are the action that you are taking. So you need to make decisions in your everyday life, either when you're communicating with people, when you're at work, when you're doing the laundry, whatever it is, your decisions that you make are to help you facilitate to get to that end goal, or to whatever goal. So think about that when you're having conversations at work, when you are talking, when you're looking for relationships. Let's say you want a relationship. Think about your end goal, and then your goals and your actions that you're doing daily are helping you get to that. So you need to make sure that you're not sabotaging yourself. Because that is easy. I was the queen of it. I could do it without even thinking. And I can guarantee you that you guys might be too. All of a sudden I would be smart mouthing a boss. Well, that's not smart. That's really not going to get me over here, is it? Made me feel better, but that wasn't going to get me over here. So you have to remember to be active in your own life. It's a lot of work. And there's days I'm better at it than other days. But you need to at least be conscious of it when you're making those decisions. Is this going to get me to my end goal, to my other goal, to whatever it is? Use your actions to help you get there. One more comment on the goals. Remember to do them in a healthy way and with love for all in your heart. Because even though they're your goals, if they are going to hurt someone else, that's not healthy. So what I always say is whatever you put out into the universe, you get back threefold. So if you're putting out love, you're going to get love back. If you're putting out healthy, you're going to get healthy back. If you're putting out I want her job, so she's got to go, you're going to get that back, times 3. So think about it and put the love and the healthy and the constructive feelings into your goals. Once you do this, and once you start taking back your power and using these power tools, not only is the universe going to give you opportunities to practice, it's going to get easier, I promise. You're not going to have to be conscious about it all the time. It's going to become a habit. It does get easier, but in the beginning, you have to set the intention and you have to make the effort to get there. Setbacks and challenges are going to happen. You're going to fall on your face. I did. I got the bruises to show it, to prove it. We all do. It's how you react to that setback that's going to set you apart. That's going to make you the person that you want to be. You pick yourself up, you do the self-analysis again, and you say, wow, you know why I fell there? Because I sabotaged myself. I never should have said it that way, or I should have done this instead. Learn from it. It is an opportunity that the universe gave you to learn from it, to grow. Some of the best lessons I ever learned were from setbacks, or when I thought I failed. I was on this wrong path. Oh my God, now I'm on this path. Are you kidding me? I just fell on my face. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. But I had to look and figure out what I was going to do, what I had done to put me there, and then accept that. Yeah, I screwed up that one. That one was not good. I owned it. I made that mistake. Now what am I going to do about it? So learn from it. Fix it. You're going to try a whole bunch of new things. Some of it's going to work. Some of it's going to be awesome. Some of it not so much. Let it go. If it doesn't work, release it. It wasn't for you. That's okay. So maybe it's for somebody else, but it didn't work for you. It worked for me, not for you. It's okay. It's your path. It's your journey. If it's not working, you decided you're going to try something way out in left field. I've never done this before. I'm going to go try this. It doesn't happen. That's okay. Release it. It wasn't for you. If you're in a situation now and you want to make a change, look at that situation and decide, is this helping me get to the person that I want to be? If it's not, let it go. Let go, let flow. Exactly. Once you let it go, once you start experiencing this new path, doors open, magic happens. I never, ever thought I would be where I am today. There were days I set these goals and I would talk the talk and I would not walk the talk. I would not walk it. You have to fully embrace it. You have to drink the Kool-Aid. You have to believe in yourself for it to work. I have never been happier. And if you had asked me 5, 6 years ago if I would be here, nope. I thought I would never be in this place in my life ever again. I was okay with that. That was okay with me too. I just wanted out of where I was. That's all I knew, is I wanted the negative. I wanted out of where I was. I hadn't thought about going forward. I'm challenging you now to think about going forward. Think about the fun that you want to have. Think about forgiving yourself. Think about moving forward. I want you to be your own hero. Be your own best friend. Make your own day. You are a unique and beautiful person of the universe. You are a child of the universe. You are worthy of whatever you want. Love yourself. Love those around you, which sometimes is easier than others. Love everything that you see.
What?
Love everything that you see.
What?
Love everything that you see.
So I'm going to read an affirmation, and then I want you guys, does everybody have an index card or no? I want everybody to take an index card. And we're going to do something fun before we start sharing. Well, I think it's fun. You need a pen.
Mind powers, right? Thank you.
So this is an exercise that I did. My husband actually reminded me of it. But I did it a little bit differently. So we can't do what I would do because we're in a firehouse. On the note card, I want you to write somebody that you gave your power to. Who did you give your power to that you didn't want to? Once you write that name, I used to burn it. We can't do that because we're in a firehouse. I don't think I'm going to appreciate that. Rip it up. Rip it up into tiny, tiny pieces. You are no longer giving them your power. It's yours. Tiny pieces.
It's kind of hard not to feel guilty.
I know it is. I actually had my parents on my list one time. And it was like, I'm almost 40 years old. That was it. Why did my parents have my power? My kids. That one was hard.
Yeah.
I gave my power to my kids. But you don't have to feel guilty. It's your power. All right, I'm going to read this and then Corinne we can talk a little. She's going to close us with the meditation, but we also talked about sharing your aha moment. So we'll get that started, but I wanted to share this with you first. I now take control of my life. I am empowered, and I use my power for good. My true power comes from an inner connection to myself and the universe. Through reflection on my values, my beliefs, and my needs, through my own self-awareness and the journey of self-discovery and personal growth, I gain wisdom, and I increase my personal power. I live consciously and with purpose and passion. I am worthy, I am powerful, and I am excited. Thank you all for letting me talk again.
Thank you.
Thank you.